Q&A.
Mayor, good morning. Want to get your comments on the Department of Justice investigation that we learned about yesterday. You've had your back and forths with the president over the months, and I'm wondering if you could have forecasted this to be a focal point of his Department of Justice and what your initial reaction was to the investigation.
Well, I'm not surprised, right? I mean, this administration has, obviously has demonstrated a great deal of animus and disdain towards what is sensible about our country, and that's the diversity of our country. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have one of the most, if not the most diverse administration in the history of Chicago. What's clear is that not only does the Trump administration not respect the rule of law or what's sensible about our society, you would be hard pressed to find qualified individuals who are in his administration. As my administration reflects the country, it reflects the city, his administration reflects the country club. And that is the biggest difference between what we're doing in Chicago and what is coming from the federal government. We're going to remain firm and steadfast in our commitment to ensure that the incredible diverse talent that we have within our administration that continues to lead us towards the safest, most affordable big city in America, we're not going to shy away or apologize for who we are.
Were you surprised?
No. Look, it's clear that this administration does not respect the rule of law. It's also clear that this administration is more interested in creating division within our country while we are being inclusive. Proud of the fact that we have individuals that have legal backgrounds, operational backgrounds, education backgrounds. I mean, when I think about, again, just the diversity of my administration, we're working hard every day to make sure that the values of my administration reflect the uniqueness of the city of Chicago, and we're doing that. And that's what the people of this country, that's what they really want. This divisive tactic that this administration is just dead set on engaging in, I'm confident that the goodwill of people, everyday people who are approaching me about how we can create more opportunities for young people, right? Approaching me about how we build more affordable homes. Again, April, the fewest amount of homicides since 1962, as violence continues to go down and our investments continue to go up. That's what everyday working people in this city are concerned with, and that's what I'm concerned with, and that's what I'm addressing.
Final question. Does it feel retaliatory? And secondly, do you have any sense of how much this could cost the city of Chicago to sort of handle it, to defend it, to respond, man hours, et cetera?
I mean, the cost if we don't defend our democracy could be quite severe. Here's what my approach has always been. It's about making sure that the city moves in the direction that benefits the wholeness of our city. Now, look, no one is going to argue, not here in Chicago, that we have lacked fairness and equity in this city. That's evident by the numbers tell us that. And it's not just with contracting and opportunities to do business with the city. It's the fact that, again, there was a report that was released. The Urban League of Chicago is leading solutions around closing the economic gap between neighborhoods, where, again, the average cumulative wealth of a black family in Chicago was $0. I would imagine that no matter who you are, that you would recognize that that's a problem. And if we're talking about how we build safe communities, if Austin isn't safe, then Streeterville can't be safe, right? And so we have to make sure that we're not falling victim to the tyranny that's coming from the federal government. We're uniting people. All of the city of Chicago is surrounded by the love and the aspirations that are coming from my administration. Look, I take a great deal of pride and humility that I was elected just 2 years ago to respond to decades of disinvestment, that they trust a working class individual to bring people together. And so when we're investing in our public schools, that investment is for all of our neighborhoods across the city. When crime is going down, that affects all of us in this city. When we're building more affordable homes, that's affecting all of us in this city. And that's what this moment is about. And we're not going to be intimidated and struck by fear because we're showing up in our best form. And that's who we are as a city of broad shoulders. We stand shoulder to shoulder. We stand elbow to elbow to make sure that we can build the safest, most affordable big city in America.
Back to the DOJ investigation. You know, one thing people say about you is wherever you go, you sound like you're talking to your base, which would basically be the black church, right? In this environment where Washington is scrutinizing Chicago, do you agree or regret that it always sounds like you're talking to black voters, and so sometimes your message gets lost in translation for a broader audience?
Yeah. So I've talked about having the lowest amount of homicides in April. The lowest amount since 1962. That speaks to the entire city of Chicago. Robberies being down. That's all of Chicago. Building affordable homes. That's all of Chicago. You know, our mental and behavioral health support services for our care program, the expansion of mental and behavioral health. It's all of Chicago. When I talk about building affordable homes and building homes downtown, you can make an assumption that I'm only talking about one particular race as well. We know who concentrates in that particular part of the city. So, look, it sounds like to me that people tune in to what they want to tune into. Because the fact of the matter is that I've shown up for this entire city. When we put $1 billion in our public school system, we don't cherry pick. Now, that benefits all of our children. There's going to be class sizes that are going to be smaller in every section of the city. We're building for green social housing. You know, some folks felt that it didn't concentrate enough in Black Chicago, right? You know, when we're talking about, you know, a Bears stadium, that's the benefit with these economic opportunities for all of Chicago. You know, when Beyonce hits me up and she wants to come to Chicago, she's going to perform for everybody. So, you know, this notion that somehow what it sounds like, let's just look at the facts. We have the most diverse administration in the history of this city. We've invested so much in environmental justice. Everybody cares about that. You know, and so I'll just end with this. Why wouldn't I speak to Black Chicago? Why wouldn't I? Black Chicago and Black people in America have borne the brunt of the type of policies and the maneuvering and the humiliating tactics that are coming from the federal government right now. It's not a secret. Who is going to be mad at the fact that we have to prioritize spaces in the city that have been harmed the most? Everybody agrees with that. Now, and if you don't agree with that, then that's a prerogative that they'll get to own. But, you know, we don't have to apologize for being concerned about the residents of this city who have borne the brunt of school closures. Think about unemployment in this city, where it is mostly concentrated. Think about violence, where it's mostly concentrated. It would be shameful if I were to repeat the sins of those who have been in this position before, because they did not speak enough to Black Chicago. It's why the conditions have worsened. And under my watch and under my administration, we're going to make those critical investments to ensure that every single person in the city of Chicago benefits from my administration. And we know that a rising tide will lift all boats.
Hey, Mayor. So today in zoning committee, the Ani project just north of Bally's, it's been stalled for a year. It's coming up.
Mayor, if we can go back to the DOJ thing, how would you say that race factors into your hiring decisions as you're trying to build your administration?
Well, look, I do believe that there is a tremendous amount of value to make sure that we have qualified, talented people who work in government. You know, I feel blessed that, you know, our budget director, who just happens to have a JD, right? It's pretty fascinating. I mean, it's not a requirement of the job, but she brings that element. You know, when I think about someone like Angela Tovar, who is, you know, leading up our, you know, environmental department, you know, her skill set and her reputation around the globe is just absolutely, it's just amazing, quite frankly. What I look for people who are competent, right? People who are collaborative and people who are compassionate. You know, is there a value to make sure that people who are closest to neighborhoods bring that level of expertise? There's value in that. Of course there's value in diversity, and we should never shy away from that. You know, unfortunately, I believe the reason why we've had so many ailments that we've had to address is because there's been a hyper concentration of a particular group or gender that has dominated politics. Right? Once upon a time, I think mayoral administrations were probably 70% white. Now, when I think about what's happening at the federal level, let's just focus there for a second. One black person in his entire administration. Now, I don't know if this is a correlation, but only having one black person in his administration and individuals that I would question their qualifications. You know, you're running up major departments and your background is wrestling. I mean, and maybe there's something valuable there, but we're not seeing it, right? So as the Trump administration moves away from diversity, you're seeing more chaos. As my administration embraces diversity, you know, you're seeing us build the safest, most affordable city in America. So look, I look at a variety of things, you know, and to have an administration that reflects not just the values of our city, but it shows up even in their backgrounds. I think that there's value to that. And I'm very proud of the fact that we're a growing administration that reflects the city of Chicago. Everyone.
Okay, just a brief follow-up.
Sure.
Will the DOJ find any discriminatory practices in how people are hired?
You know, again, the approach is an approach that speaks to competency. That's it. This would be unprecedented, but if you just look at the way the Trump's administration is reflecting right now, I'm calling on the Department of Justice to investigate the Trump's administration and its discriminatory practices in their hiring. Thank you all. I've been waiting to use that. I tried it with my son. He told me not to, but.
Mayor Johnson.
Yeah.
Please turn the mic on. Thank you. Real Chicagoans woke up this morning relieved that the Department of Justice is finally investigating your race hustle. As someone who grew up on the south side of Chicago, I've heard a lot of race hustlers in my life, trust me. But they were usually marching around outside of City Hall, which is what makes this so embarrassing and dangerous. Very, very dangerous to the city of Chicago.
Okay, we need the question.
I'm more than happy to ask this question. It's long overdue. For over a year, real Chicagoans, white and black, have been telling me that your black power rhetoric is bringing the city backwards from a place that
We need the question.
had overcome. You want the question?
Please.
Real Chicagoans want to know, why are you a racist?
Well, you know, first of all, I reject the idea and the premise that somehow that's an actual legitimate question.
You want to bet?
All right, we're going to go to the next one. Alice?
The next question, my follow-up question is a businessman, Robert Gomez, had his riverfront restaurant license yanked. You said that the reason you hire black people is because they're the most generous race on the planet. His riverfront restaurant license was yanked and given to a black restaurateur. That has, once again, reinforced the belief among real Chicagoans,
Okay.
white and black,
We need
and
the
Mexican,
question.
that you are a racist. What do you say to those people?
Again, I reject the premise that somehow that your question has any legitimacy. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. We'll go to
Pass the mic
Alice.
there. Thank you.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
Looking more broadly, the Trump administration has increasingly been citing the Civil Rights Act to investigate whether white people are being discriminated against, including in this latest DOJ probe. What do you make of this legal interpretation, and does it being used against Chicago concern you?
Well, again, the diversity that the city of Chicago represents is something that reflects, quite frankly, the soul of America, right? We are the quintessential example of what it means to be a global city. And it's a proud legacy. How this president is using his power or attempting to use his power is using it to divide people. And look, I'm not going to stand for it. Look, I get it. It's a conversation that people get provocated by. But the fact of the matter is, as I continue to work in collaboration to build the safest, most affordable big city in America, that's what my focus is on. I can't control, the tyrannical proclivities of this administration. I try not to get distracted by that. And I don't want the people of Chicago to get distracted by it either. Think about what we're building in our city, where we've seen the occupancy rate increase downtown, that $20 billion of tourism that is moving through our coffers, that population growth continues to happen. We're creating safer spaces for our young people. Now look, I'm not saying that everything is perfect. What I'm saying is that we're moving in the right direction. The safest, most affordable big city in America. People made a decision 2 years ago around who is going to work the hardest to keep us safe. And I made a commitment that I would work harder than anyone. Homicides are down, shootings are down, carjackings are down, robberies are down, investments continue to go up. $11 billion of new investments last year, $8 billion so far this year. The process through planning, the Planning Commission, where we're moving the business activity through the city of Chicago much faster, 178 something days down to 78 days. With our budget director, we put together a working group to respond to the financial challenges that people are experiencing all over the country. We had our first gathering on Saturday. Every single representative was there, labor, business, community. People like, I won't name all the names, but the people there that recognize that it's going to take all of us. It is this generation's opportunity in turn to come together collectively to transform our city, and that's exactly what we're doing.
And have you reached out to state law?
Okay.
I apologize, Mayor. I had to step out briefly. So
okay.
If I'm asking you a question you've already answered, I apologize.
It's okay.
In hindsight, given this DOJ probe, the rhetoric used to tout the diversity in your administration, would you change anything that you said in light of perhaps Asian Americans, Native Americans, or Latino Americans who might not feel reflected in the Black leadership positions that you talked about? Given the criticism, is there anything in your rhetoric that you would change in hindsight?
So that's a great question. So just think about the question that was just asked by your colleague. She specifically asked about Latino representation. And so we gave a specific response to Latino representation.
Because they're speaking specifically about the comments made over
What
the
I'm saying
weekend.
is the question was a specific question that was asked about Black contracts in particular. Look, I get those questions all the time, you all. I do. People ask me about LGBTQ plus representation. They ask me about women representation. Can I just be absolute honest here? I know I do this every single press availability. I'm going to make my communications director cringe. This is a quintessential example of the type of divisiveness that this president wants us to have. Do you know how many times I've spoken of the diversity of my administration? So I'm going to say Cristina Pacion-Zayas, Beatrice Ponce de Leon, Cynthia Soto, Angela Tovar, Commissioner Andrade, Commissioner Capafali, Executive Director Frank Velez, Chancellor Salgado, CEO and General Superintendent Ramirez Rosa. Is that offensive?
Not at all.
Not at all, right? So
asking,
what I'm just simply saying is,
criticism,
but is that offensive though? that I just mentioned leaders within my administration that all are part of the Latin community. Why would that be offensive to anyone? When we have 8% Asian Americans, do you know what the representation of Asian Americans were in administrations prior? You don't know, do you?
Not off the top of my head. No, I don't.
No one has ever asked. But we still made it a purpose to make sure that there was good representation. Look, the city of Chicago has suffered from a great deal of pain because of the political and the racial dividing lines that have existed in this city for a long time. I'm going to break those lines. I am. I'm going to show up for the Latino community. We're going to show up for Asian Americans. We're going to show up for Black folks in this city. We're going to show up for the LGBTQ plus community. Any group that has been marginalized, that have suffered under tyranny and oppression, we're going to show up for them. We're not going to be intimidated by the tyranny that's coming from the federal government. The diversity of our city is our strength. And so when people ask me specific questions about their particular communities, they're going to want to know that there's some assurance within my administration that I'm going to show up for that particular community. And do you know why they ask those questions? Because other administrations have failed. And I'm giving people some confidence that I'm not going to ignore any particular group, especially groups that have been marginalized. And so, of course, the president wants to highlight the fact that I mentioned those names. So guess what? I hope that he listened when I said Capofali, Ponce de Leon, Velez. Those are powerful surnames, just like Johnson, Williams, and Jenkins. And that's the celebration of who we are as a city. And I'm not going to be intimidated or allow the failures of the past to dictate how we move forward. This is this generation's opportunity to get something right. And so when Cesar Chavez and when Reverend Jackson were fighting collectively to ensure that brown and black people can be empowered, and they got us as far as they could get us, now it's going to take a collective response from all of us to ensure that no one is left behind in this city. And that's why I'm very grateful that I'm in a position to build the safest, most affordable big city in America. And regardless of your surname, you get to find sanctity here in this beloved city. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.